Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Bonus Points podcast. I am your host, Joe Garrett, as always being joined by Ollie Guy.
Hello, hello.
Hello Ollie, we've got we're doing things differently to how we ever have done before. Normally I will announce who chose the game that we're doing, and it's usually either you, me, or our guest, but no one here chose the game we're doing this week.
They did not, but luckily for you, I remember who chose the game off the top of my head, so we can give them a shout out. Yeah, this was an audience selected game this time. So we basically, for anyone that missed it, put out a video saying, tell us what game you want us to cover in the comments, and whichever comment gets the most thumbs up, then we'll play that game. And the winner was What Remains of Edith Finch, as voted for by Mugger Rock. So congratulations, Mugger Rock.
Loads of other people.
All the people thumbs upping it. Yeah.
Team effort. And if you did want to kind of join in a vote and like decide like what game we're going to do in the future, then it should have been quicker, shouldn't you? So
should have been quicker.
Should have been quicker. We might do it again in the future. We'll see.
Yeah. But no. So this episode should be incredibly popular and be our most popular episode yet, because it's what people want. For once.
Do you remember how many votes it ended up getting?
Something like 162, 170.
Okay.
And it beat Star Wars Jedi Survivor in the end by about 30 votes.
Yeah, that's very good, just because of the way the voting system worked. We were hoping that you'll just see, if you go to top comments, the ones that have the most votes. But YouTube doesn't do that way, and it'd be like, top comment is this comment with like 2 likes, and it just says like first or something. And then the actual top comments are like hidden, where you've got to scroll through like hundreds of game suggestions. So the fact that anyone was able to get over 100 votes is very impressive. So there's obviously a very dedicated Edith Finch fan base, and hopefully if you're part of that fan base, you will enjoy this week's podcast.
Yes, I guess they're called Finch heads. Finchies?
Is that the term?
I don't know. What would you call them? Edie's?
I don't know if it's the type of game that you can give like that sort of term to. I don't know. Maybe let us know in the comments if you know of a real one or you want to make one up.
So I played this game when it came out in 2017. I probably actually played it about 6 months after it came out, but I was there during the launch period. Had you played it before?
Yeah, I played it, I think it'd been out for maybe about 2 years. I played it whenever it came to Game Pass, was when I played it, as I play so often games because I'm cheap. So that was a great chance for me to check it out. But yeah, before we go too in-depth, do you want to kind of give a summary for what this game is, if you have it ready?
Yes, I have it ready. I had to cut it down a bit because this has been released on so many consoles that it was just like super long. So, What Remains of Edith Finch is a first-person exploration video game developed by Giant Sparrow and published by Annapurna Interactive. The game was released in April 2017 for pretty much everything that was out at that period, and has since got a current gen version as well. The story follows 17-year-old Edith Finch, the last surviving member of her family, as she returns to her ancestral home for the first time in 7 years. Re-exploring the house, she uncovers her family's mysterious past and learns about a series of deaths that eventually cause the complete collapse of her family structure.
Good time to say spoiler warnings, I guess. For the,
well, also, and the other thing is, if you're watching now and you haven't played it, the game is only 2 hours long. So you could go, finish it, and come back all in one afternoon. You could do that.
Yes. And it's also, I don't know if it's on PlayStation Plus or something, but like I could play it for free on PlayStation. I don't know if like maybe it was a monthly game in the past I had saved, but I 100% had never played or bought it on PlayStation.
Yeah,
but I didn't have to buy it and I was able to play it. So you might, if you've been having PlayStation Plus, the base one for a while, you might already own it, but not even realize.
The second tier is on the second tier of the whatever.
See, I'm on base. Cheap, as I said. So I was able to play it for some reason.
So did you play
it was probably a monthly game.
So you played the PS4 version on your PS5?
I did, yeah, this time, yeah.
Yeah, same.
Okay, cool. So they describe it as, what do they call it, an exploration game? Is that what the Wikipedia article described it as? These are kind of commonly described as walking simulators, and I never liked that term because it sounded a bit like it almost sounds like it's kind of putting the game down a little bit. But I've since seen developers refer to their own games as that, and even in trailers them. So I don't know, like I kind of thought Walking Simulator has kind of just like, it's like they've owned the word now. They've just like, you know what, you kind of called it that as almost like an insult, but you know what, we're gonna go with that because it's kind of quite funny and cheeky. So would you consider this game a walking simulator in its like traditional sense of the word?
I don't know. I'd say it was more like a collection of short stories connected by a hub world that you walk around in.
Yeah,
it's not really like what the other, like Everyone's Gone to the Rapture and Beginner's Guide was definitely more of a walking simulator than this, I'd say.
Yeah,
which we
Firewatch is another big one. Gone Home. And then I think Dear Esther was like the first like popular one that kind of, I think that was like it was almost like a mod, wasn't it? Like a Source Engine mod or something that got very very popular and almost kind of spawned the genre as we know it, or at least popularized it.
And Death Stranding.
Death Stranding. So I was looking at, I was trying to think about what are other walking simulators, and I looked up just like top 15 like walking simulators and stuff, and they had Death Stranding on there, and I'm like, I see what you're doing there.
That's the true walking simulator, that is.
Yeah, but then they had some other games like quite a lot of horror games that I would kind of consider to have like more, I guess, gameplay. And I guess, well, the way I kind of think of like exploring games or walking simulator games is games where there's no like challenge in terms of input, no failure states, and it's about kind of a story and an experience, and mainly environmental storytelling is a big thing. It's like a game of a certain pace and like style rather than it being like anything specific mechanically, because a lot of them have quite a lot of variety in terms of what you're doing and how many things you can do. Like some of them it's literally I'm in this world and I can look, and then other games like this are actually quite interactive and quite varied in terms of the it sounds like a bad term, like mini games that you're performing in these stories.
So this is like, I saw it referred to as an anthology of vignettes, which I think is kind of the best way.
Very good, yeah.
It's like wildly different stories, wildly different tones, different mechanics, sometimes different graphics, and they all kind of have one thing in common, and is whoever you're playing as will die at the end. But that doesn't mean they're all sad. Some of them are like quite funny, and some of them are weird, and some of them are quite like curious, like, oh, what is happening? And then obviously some of them are sad too. Like I don't think they can dodge that, but yeah. So I wouldn't say like, oh, this game is so depressing or anything. Like it's just happens to be about death.
Yeah, which is like a very interesting line to walk. Like, do you like what was like your emotional journey as you played through the game, or even if you kind of remember back to the first time you played this game? Did this affect you emotionally?
No, I mean some of the stories are sad, definitely, but mostly it's like you're so far removed from what you're. Do you know what I mean? It's like your relative from 100 years ago or something, and it's like some of them are definitely sad. Like we're just going to have to spoiler warning for the game because we can't talk about it without spoiling, it's so short. But like the one with the baby is obviously very sad, where he drowns in the bath, and the final one with Edith is sad. But apart from that, I don't think they really dwell too much on being sad. It's kind of like other curios and like or dark humor or something like that. But those two specifically, I remember like being quite bummed out, but nothing like, you're not crying over. Nothing like something extreme,
I think one of the big things is that, as we kind of said, you're playing through the stories of these character deaths, not the character deaths, because you never know how much of what you're playing through is actually what happened. It's often really like fanciful, and even the baby death story, like baby deaths isn't a topic that is ever or very rarely discussed in video games, and the fact that you're kind of playing through it in first person, and it's like, oh, a baby that was neglected and left in a bath and presumably drowned, but the way it's presented is with like a little toy frog bouncing around, and it's all kind of colorful and pretty, and I feel like Like, do you think kind of like these stories were kind of created by the family members, mainly Edie, as kind of a way to like deal with like these deaths in the family?
Maybe. You don't know, do you? They kind of leave these breadcrumbs, but they never really wrap it up. And I think that's fine. You don't need it wrapped up. You don't know whether or not the curse was real. I mean, one thing that stuck out to me was after Edie died towards the end of the game, and then your character's mum dies of cancer or something terminal. It's like, oh, as soon as Edie dies, your mum has a very standard death, and it isn't fanciful or, you know, some fantasy thing. It's actually like, oh, you had a death that affects 1 in 3 people on Earth, like very normal. So I don't know. I mean, that's why they make it like that, right?
Yeah.
So you don't know. But
and they even kind of make a point of it where it seems like you, Edith, the character you're playing as, isn't really on board with these stories and the way things are being told. Like, there's a bit where she picks up, there's one of the characters called Barbara who was like a child star, and her death is told through like a comic book. And when you pick it up, you're like, God, like why did my great grandmother keep this story of all of the stories about her death, and it's like a really like pulpy like comic book and like almost kind of like humorous story, and it's like, well, this is like your like family member that died, and like this is like the story that you're keeping around of her death. So it seems like maybe with Edith, you know, going, that was when the stories kind of dried up.
Yeah, that's my favorite one, by the way. That comic book.
What do you want to talk about it? I think cool. we have time to like focus on a few specific standout ones. So yeah, did you want to kind of talk about some of the ones that you really liked?
Yeah, so the comic book one was awesome. It was basically about this child star who grown up, washed up child star, and she was meant to be going to some horror convention or something and practicing her like horror scream, and then you kind of play through her story of her death, but it's like you're kind of moving through a comic, so you'll be like flying between frames, but like some of the frames you're actually playing in first person, some of them you're just looking at pictures. And also the music, the licensed music in the game is all really good, and then them using the Halloween theme song for this was like, oh, that's great, like the film. I can't really remember. I think like it ends with like actual monsters coming into the house and eating her, which like, obviously is not what happened, but it's the same as the it's the same as the one with Molly. She gets killed by a monster under her bed, so it's like, well, that's not what's happening. I mean, you don't know, do you? Maybe they were all neglected, and because like the rooms being sealed and everything else, and the baby drowning in the bath and that. I don't know. Yeah,
it seemed like for that the Barbara one, the child star one, it seemed like it was kind of trying to point the fingers a little bit to her boyfriend as the killer there, and like found like the crutch and stuff, and maybe this was a story that told that. And then the Molly one, it was like this young girl that was like left in her bedroom, and she hadn't had dinner, and she was so hungry, she was just eating like stuff around her bedroom and toothpaste and like rotten carrots and stuff. And then maybe, and that one's written from first person, it's Molly writing the diary, so maybe she kind of went into a fever and she was imagining that she was this, and it was, oh, this child died by eating things that she shouldn't have in her room, and they couldn't deal with that, and so, you know, they kind of, I guess they wouldn't have even created the story. That would have been from Molly, because another like thread that follows a lot of the families is just like really wild imaginations, you know, maybe verging on schizophrenia, where they're fantastical things they're seeing as real, and that would often end up relating directly to their deaths. Did you pick up on that?
Yeah, or just super creative, and like child prodigies. Like the baby one, there was something in it that was like, this kid is like musically gifted, even though they don't know it yet, because of the way you like move your arm and it changes the speed of the song, and like all the things making different instrument noises. And then obviously there's Milton, the artist, was like another one. So it's like maybe they're just all super gifted like creatively, and then that's all come from Edie, the grandma, who's like making up these insane stories about their death, which like, yeah, I mean, we don't know. You literally can't tell, but it seemed it would be something like that. So that one was really cool. I also really liked the one with where you take pictures, and every time you take a picture, it moves. So it's like a kid. I can't remember who the kid is, actually. It might be Dawn on a hunting trip.
Yes, it is. It's Dawn with her dad, right?
With
Sam.
her dad, yeah. And then you're kind of on this hunting trip, and every time you take a picture, it moves to the next area. That one was really cool. And also another thing I really respected about it is that like they weren't afraid to have like huge production value ones and really small ones and have them together. Like nothing was like, you know, the one with the flip book with the kid, Milton. They weren't like, oh, we got to make a whole game out of this, drawing this thing. And then so they were just like, oh, yeah, you can see it in a book and that's enough. You don't need. And it's like, I actually really respect that. Like, they were like, we know where to put the money. Like, we know where to put the budget and the effort. And it's like, some of them are fine as pictures. Same with the viewfinder one, actually, where every time you click it around. That's like enough, you know?
Can I talk about my favourite one?
Please do.
So my favourite one is do you remember Lewis? It's the cannery one who works at like the fish cannery.
Yeah.
And that one I think is one of like, so basically it goes through, it's like, I think he's like a teenager when it happened, and he worked at a cannery, and it's like a really mundane job where literally it's like grab a fish, cut its head off, throw it off, grab it, and you're doing that in your gameplay, and then you're kind of playing through his imagination while also hearing his psychiatrist kind of talking about him. And so what you end up doing is you're still with one analog stick controlling his hand doing the fish, and then with the other one playing through his imagination, which is kind of gradually getting more vivid. At first it looks like a very kind of like old video game, and it kind of, he was a big gamer as well, and so it's almost like it's kind of going through the generations of games until it's like a full 3D thing that you're playing through. And I think it's just one of the best cases of like, this is a thing that would only work in video games, because
definitely.
You end up doing the same thing, because eventually you don't have to think about doing the fish thing. You end up doing that instinctively, and that's kind of what he's doing, where he's kind of not even realizing he's doing that, and then you end up doing it at the same time while kind of hearing like this analysis of what he's going through, and then playing through his imagination where you're making decisions, and you kind of like, oh, I just, and the psychiatrist is talking about how he just wanted to live in that fantasy world, but it's quite cool the way it's presented. I'm like, yeah, so do I don't want to be doing this fish thing anymore. I just want to play that game. And I think that's just a great blending of like gameplay mechanic to create a feel in the story, and I think that's just exclusively could be done in an interactive medium. So I thought that was amazing. I
agree with you in theory.
Okay.
But I've only written down 2 negatives, and one of them was that vignette about Lewis and the thing. I don't think his job is grim enough, and his like substance abuse was potent enough for it. Just didn't pay off. Like, millions of people around the world work jobs like that, and they're not like, oh, I have to smoke weed and become fanciful. Like, and also it's all like, oh, legalize weed. Like, it's legal in loads of places now. So like, it kind of looks a bit funny. Like, I think if his job was like, oh yeah, he's a immigration officer and he denies visas, that would be like better than like, oh, loads of people have boring jobs. So I was like, it's not actually that bad. Like, his job, it sucks, but it's not like, bad enough to cause all of this and like go to therapy and stuff. Like, it's not that bad.
No,
do you know what I
but
mean?
I don't. But I think like there's a through line of mental illness throughout this family, and so I think that could have very well been his starting point. And then, if he's a very creative person put into like the most mundane of situations, and then also it's not even just like, it's not like he's just doing like stamping a stamp. He's like cutting the head of a possibly still living creature, and like, it's kind of a dark turn here, but like the suicide rates and mental illness for people that have been in like slaughterhouses is like super high. So like there's the grimness element, like the smell of it, like it's just a horrible environment that you're stuck in for a long time doing a mundane action. Like if you have a creative brain and maybe, possibly suffering mental illness, your brain might create another place to escape so your consciousness can get away from that situation. I don't think that's a stretch, and I feel like that was explained well enough that I at least was on board with it.
Yeah, no, like, I get it in theory. And the other thing is, like, with the weed as well, I was like, is he meant to be, like, visualizing this happening? Like, he's not, I didn't think that would happen if he smoked weed, and you wouldn't be like, oh, I can see a fanciful town. Like, I was just like, it didn't feel like either of the 2 elements were extreme enough for it to like, it felt like a very clean version of what they were trying to do, whereas like they could have really gone for it.
Yeah, I wonder if there was a rating. I wonder if it was originally meant to be like LSD or something else.
Exactly, yeah, that's what I'm saying. And then he could have been like, oh, I'm the financial officer for a hospital and I tote up people's surgery bills. And it's like, that's a horrible job, like knowing you're going to be doing that.
No, I think it has to be a mundane, repetitive job rather than like an emotional strain job. So I feel like I feel like this fit the bill, and also something that they can do in a video game that you're playing through. I think that action works quite well.
Yeah,
like their house is located next to the sea. It's a believable job that he would be doing.
Yeah. So is the house on an island, or is it?
Yeah,
part of the
and it's a big island. But I think it is in America, and it's a real island as well.
Oh, okay.
So it's a real place. It's not fictional, but it is a smaller island, you know, compared to like a bigger island.
I mean, I thought that they were the only house on the island. So like, I was like, where's the train? There's one with the train.
Exactly. So
and I was like, where's that going? Like.
So and there's no train on the island. So there is a train on that island, but it's like a small private train. So one of the things I kind of wanted to talk about, because I went down a rabbit hole of just before this, I was like, let me look up some reviews. I always like looking at the reviews of people that reviewed it when the game came out. Mm-hmm. And so I searched for it, and then I saw, even if you search Edith Finch review, one of the top videos is a game theory video about Edith Finch. And do you know the Game Theory channel? Have you heard of them?
Yeah, I think I can guess what they do.
Yeah. But they're like huge. They're not like, when you think of like game theory stuff, you think of like people like us, like, but it's not. It's like they're like huge, like viral videos and really popular with kind of young teenagers and children. The face of it is a guy called Matt Pat. And I feel like this channel, and then the channels that kind of were lifted by this channel and kind of doing a similar thing, are a big reason why games like Five Nights at Freddy's were so popular, and Undertale, and then I'd put this game in the same bucket of games that have dark tones and maybe like kind of secret messages and maybe like a sinister undertone, but are presented in a colourful, often comedic way. And these are often games that become hugely popular with kind of teenagers and young adults, you know, and adults as well, but very in particular with like older children and younger teenagers. And in his video, he's kind of talking about, he thinks that, or his theory is that Edie was actually killing everyone and kind of using these stories to kind of hide it. And he's kind of presenting his argument. And the argument sounds quite convincing in the same way that like conspiracy theories are convincing when you only cherry pick the relevant information. So I don't know whether I subscribe to it. But in that video, he kind of talks about like this actual real island, and one of his things he's saying is that there isn't a train on the island, and like it was actually Edie and stuff. But yeah, I just wondered if you had any thoughts about kind of almost like that genre of game, and I don't mean like gameplay genre, but a game of that tone, and the fact that this game, we gave people a choice out of any video game in the world, and this came up, and our audience, I'd say our average age is kind of like early 20s, people that would have been teenagers when this game came out. I don't know. Did you have any kind of thoughts about that?
We kind of had a feeling that something like this might get picked. I don't know if you remember when we first started talking about it, one of the things we said was it will be something about death. Yeah. I don't know if you remember talking about that. That was like the first guess we had. Yeah.
You said an indie game, a dark indie game about depression or something. Yeah.
But it's, I don't know. I think it's fine. I don't think it's not as dark as everyone. The way it's presented, it's like they could have done what I said and gone mad or like really gone for it, but it's kind of, I don't know, it's not, I don't think it's as dark as everyone thinks it might be. Edie didn't kill them, or like the final one, you have a conversation with her about leaving and she's like, oh, okay. Like, if you leave, the curse will come with you, but she's not like, you can't leave because I'm going to kill you. So it's like, I don't know. I don't think it's kind of like, if you think about the ones like the kite and the kid on the swing, it's kind of like if they wanted to make it really horrible, then things like that wouldn't be in it.
No, but what I'm saying is it seems to be these games that are kind of quite colourful and like appealing to younger people on the face of it. Like you think of Undertale, like it's really funny.
Yeah.
Five Nights at Freddy's, it's like ooga booga, like these like creatures, you know. It's like it like in its face value, it has that appeal to kids, but then they can get into it, and then it has like these undertones, and whether they're put in there by developers or not, these theories and like almost like urban legends spawn up around them, where it's like, oh, you were drawn in by this bright colorful thing, and you're jumping around as a cat in the game, or you know, isn't like I love the Sans music in Undertale, or whatever it is that's kind of grabbed you in and got you into it, and then you can kind of keep going deeper and deeper, and then that's kind of what makes people kind of like stick around in it and keep talking about it for so long.
I mean, also you don't really get stuff like that on TV or in films so much, because the ratings would just be like, oh yeah, it's an 18. And you'd be like, it looks like it's for kids.
Exactly.
And then all of a sudden it doesn't work anymore. Whereas like with an indie game, I guess they can kind of slip it in. But also, like, I don't think the developers were thinking about like, oh, kids are going to think this is really deep. Like, I think it was an accident. And also, I doubt a lot. I mean, I've got no idea. I don't know, but I doubt that many of the theories that people put on it, the actual story probably hasn't been thought about any more than what we've seen in the game. They're like, oh, we'll leave it up to interpretation, and that's it. They're not like, and then we're going to hide all these little clues in here that show that Edie killed them or anything. Like, it's probably just people looking into it. I don't know. It's really difficult to answer. It's a really difficult question to answer. Like, I thought that normally my radar for stuff like that is quite good, and I thought this game was pretty cool, and it worked and it was tasteful, you know, so...
It does have a lot of little touches and like things like... You can notice that the like where the railing was, where the person with the claw was pushed through the railing in Barbara's story. You can see that that's been like repaired. Yeah, and even things like if you look down at the beginning, you can see that like Edith has like a bump, and like there are like there are a lot of tiny like details put in by developers. But I guess maybe you're saying that. That's just for the story that they were telling, rather than it being necessarily lining up with kind of some of these more conspiracy theories.
Yeah, I think all of the information you need is in the game, and it's given to you in the game. All the information they want you to have is given to you in the game. There isn't someone who develops it who's sitting there thinking like, oh, I'm going to put in a meta story about how Edie killed everyone. They're probably just like, we've given them clues. There isn't really anything beyond like, is the curse real or not? That's kind of it. And yeah, I think that Edie was just, well, all of them were just making it up, and maybe it was just a series of unfortunate events that killed them all off, and it wasn't really anything more than that.
I do know that Giant Sparrow did do in an interview, they said like that it will be taken, like people will have different interpretations, and they purposely left it open enough so people could think about what they want. And I think that ultimately is what makes it more interesting. There's someone that could be, oh no, certain that it's this, and if you see, but why would this picture be up in this person's room and stuff, and then other people can kind of take it more at face value, or kind of come away from it thinking something very different.
Yeah, no, I agree. And you know, if they did plan in all of this overarching story, then that would kind of fly in the face of that, wouldn't it? Because you wouldn't be able to have your own interpretation, because they'd be like, nope, that's wrong. It's Edie killed them, whatever it is. But yeah, no, I think thought it was a cool game. I really respected the fact that it was only 2 hours long, not just because I was busy, but the fact that they're like, our story can be told in 2 hours, and it will be, and that's it. It doesn't need loads more extra stuff filled in. I really, really respected that about it. I know some people will probably maybe saw it as being of less value, but I think that it's a good, you know, I played it in 2017 and it's now 2023, and I remembered the overarching story and maybe 2 or 3 of the things, so like it stays with you.
Yeah. And it's a very short game, but it's a very dense game. Like it's not lacking content and variety, and you know, it doesn't have like the most amount of environments, but I think just like it has a huge amount of gameplay mechanics and like different ways that you're kind of controlling and inputting through these different stories. And I think none of them stand out as being like, oh, this was clunky, or I can't do the thing that I wanted I wanted to do. And that could have very easily have been a case, you know, like when you're a cat jumping around on the tree, and then later in the same story you're an owl or a shark or a creature crawling, and it feels really good stretching your tentacle out and pulling yourself along to then cool. Like like them flying the kite and the way that the physics works, and it's like lifting things up, like those things, they're almost making something that could have been, its own light game by itself, but they're packing them all, very fast pace. And like, it's good they showed restraint of thinking like, oh, we've made this mechanic, like what else can we do? Like, they're like, no, like it served its purpose to tell this story.
Exactly,
now we're going to throw that away and move on to another thing. And I think that shows just like a great vision from Giant Sparrow about like what they want the pacing and the final piece to be, and not getting stuck in there like, well, we made it, we want to make sure people are going to see every tiny detail, so we're going to like highlight them or something. They really care about your time and your experience through the game.
Well, we actually had a comment from Evan Harriardi. He writes in quite a lot, and they said that one of the first ideas was the text floating in the air, how it kind of highlights what you need to be looking at. And they were like, let's run with that and try and figure out what to do. But they couldn't figure anything out until one team member thought of the part with the shark in the forest.
Yeah.
And that was the jumping off point where they were like, oh yeah, that's actually a really good idea. Let's spin out all the other ideas from that as being like much more outlandish and much more crazy than they were probably initially thinking. But yeah, so apparently the developer thought of a child saying, and suddenly I was a shark. And they were like, oh, that's great. Like, let's use that. Let's the house itself is also pretty amazing. Like the design of the house and the fact that you walk around it a certain way and you never get lost. And there's even a part where you go to a graveyard and then you walk up to something at the end, and I think you turn around and on the way back you can see another route.
Yeah,
and they do that quite a lot. It's just stuff like that.
Yeah,
very cleverly woven through.
Yeah, because I remember you mentioned that you had been playing it, and you had mentioned about some of the ones that you'd done, and I remember going like, you were saying about going through them. I was like, oh, do you have to do them in order? And you were like, oh yeah, because I kind of forgot that there is an order to go through them. But it really doesn't feel like you're going through a linear route through the house. It's not like you're going from room one, room two. You're snaking your way through things, and it's just quite satisfying seeing all like the hidden areas. Like, oh, behind this book, there's like a secret door, and you have to crawl down through it. I mean, I love stuff like that anyway, and like real life, like hidden areas and stuff.
Yeah, and also the house is like kind of like a representation of like the family and everything, where it's like built layer upon layer or built on itself over and over again. It's like just like really weird looking, really outlandish design, really variety, like the variety of the rooms. Some of the rooms are amazing. There was a space themed bedroom that had like a little cockpit. I was like, this is great. If I was a kid, I would have loved the bridge going over the top and everything.
And it was like split exactly down the middle with like their brother's room, which was kind of like a line down the middle. And then also just, obviously there's a lot of environmental storytelling in terms of you can look around, but just like the density of objects like throughout the house. Like it was kind of, when this game was released, it was kind of one of the early games where you could do that. Whereas, environments used to be like, you'd be a room and there'd be like a boxy sofa and a boxy TV and maybe a shelf with like one box that's painted to look like books or something. But here it's like, no, you can look at the table and it's like looks realistically messy, and there's like leftover plates and unique items scattered everywhere. And this was an earlier, like I think the first game where I really saw that done well was actually Grand Theft Auto 5. And that was back on the Xbox 360, and I remember going into the interiors and being like, oh yeah, this is what houses are like. It's not like the same thing repeated, or like you would look at a table and it would be like as messy as my desk is now with and the way that they're arranged, obviously not in like a grid, they've been hand placed. And this has been done throughout this entire house. And you can see that there's been thought put into every object. But, and then obviously it's just the first point where technology could handle that as well.
Yeah, but I don't know if the house... I don't know if it's been designed, like, as in by the actual artists. It doesn't feel like you could live in it. Like, you know how we talked about Hollow Knight and it was like, oh, everything kind of makes sense the way it's laid out. Whereas in this game, it kind of feels like it was built for you to walk through a certain route. 'Cause there's a part as well where Edith is like, oh, I went to the library, my mum doesn't know how to get in there. And because you crawl for a hidden door. But then in the next shot, your mum's in there with you. And it's like, you just said she doesn't know how to get in there. So how is she with you? Like, and it's like, so many things are sealed up and cut off. And it's like, well, how would you possibly move around this house if everything was like open? But like, I did notice that. And also we got a comment as well saying that like a lot of the books are cookery books. like most of the books in the house are Greek books, which is like, I guess they just had to. But don't get me wrong, like it looks amazing. It looks really, really good. Like
yeah. I wonder if there's a line there, and I mean. Yeah, I mean, obviously, the house is ridiculous. Like, for those that haven't seen anything of it, it looks like a big, almost like barn, but then it's just been built up on the top, almost like a skyscraper of just boxes, or like arranged haphazardly. And then obviously the top bit is a lot of bedrooms. It's like, oh wait, so to go to like Edith's bedroom, you're going through like 4 other people's bedrooms and in and out them. Like, and I think that at some point, they kind of chose the design of like, no, this is what is going to look visually good, and this is what's going to kind of play good for the route that you have to go to. But of course, you could think into, well, maybe that's kind of the way it is. As the family grew, they had to haphazardly add things, and there wasn't an initial thought and a plan in terms of the layout, and they had to just throw things on. Like, you could narratively explain away the layout. Probably
and
for
also
a lot
like
of the things.
The house is the vehicle for the story, right? So it has to be like that. You know, it has to be built that certain way in order for it to make sense. There's lots of things about it that don't make sense, like the very top room is a boat, and it's like, but that must be real. Like, that can't be something fanciful because you go there. So, yeah, I don't know, it's, I'd love to live there, despite the fact that it's cursed.
Yeah,
and obviously the rooms would have to be unsealed, which is pretty weird. But
I kept thinking that when she said like, I inherited the house, but I've not been back here since I was 11. It's like, why? Like, you can have such good parties here. What have you done? And I guess family curse, maybe a lot of bad stories, and like, oh, I mean, I wouldn't fancy like dusting it, like cleaning it. Like, I've got a Hoover. Let's lift up the furniture. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it might be you'd need a team, but it is so cool. That's
so funny though, the way, because you said that it's on a real island, because I thought it was just had the house on it. So, you know, the ending where the little kid like looks up at the house. Me and Bridie were like, he's gone back to Death Island. Like, why would you go back? But I didn't realise there was other things there. I thought he just like found his way there. It was like, oh, I'm gonna take it on now.
So, what did you think of like the ending and kind of like the, I guess I suppose like the twist? Like, what was your interpretation of it?
What was the twist?
Well, there's the twist about that Edith was dead, and it was like, her son.
Yeah. I didn't really think of it as a twist. I was like, she's going to die, and then I knew she was pregnant because when you looked down, you could see her stomach. So I was kind of, I guess also I played it before, so I remembered the birthing scene because I was like, that's mental. But I didn't think of it. I just thought I guess it makes sense actually that it would be a twist because she's telling the story. How would she tell the story if she's dead?
Exactly. Like, I kind of assumed, this is him reading her diary, and she wrote this for him. And then she kind of says, like, you know, I hoped you wouldn't ever read this, but I guess I've died if you are. Yeah, I guess reading this.
The fact that I felt the ending was inevitable is pretty good. I was like, it can only end that way. So for me, I was like, oh yeah, that seems right. I'm glad that they did, in a lovely way, bump her off. Because a lot of games don't have the courage to do that to their characters, so it was pretty good that they did it. Also, I mean, what's going to happen to that kid?
Yeah, is he is he the end of the chain of the curse, or not?
I don't know. I would say it would have been nice if in the game we had a bit more. I know that the people that married into the family weren't cursed, but it would have been nice to see a bit more of them, because obviously, I mean, who's the dad to the kid as well? We don't know.
Well, you never meet them, I don't think.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe they're just worried about, because there's a lot of names and family, you know, it's good to have the family tree to help you keep track.
Their family tree drawing, it's not very easy to read, like, to tell who's related to who. I know when you think about family tree and it's kind of that like grid based, it's quite easy to read, but like their one already starts upside down to the standard. So it's already like, okay, so the oldest person's at the bottom rather than the top, like. So yeah, I don't know. I'm looking at it now, and there is a few people you can see on there, like Sven, Kay, Sanjay, who you don't see in the game at all because they all married in. But I thought we might. I don't know. In my mind, I thought we were going to see Sanjay. I don't know why I thought that. Maybe
you don't really hear like
scene or
hardly anything about him, do you?
No, and I know the developers have come out and said that Milton is the main character of Unfinished Swan.
Yeah. So did you ever play Unfinished Swan?
No, I know what it is. I've seen the trailer, like where you throw the ink around, and then there's like that doesn't last the whole game though, does it? The ink throwing, it's the first part.
No, you're always kind of throwing something. So I actually did a Let's Play on that on my Stampy channel. I played through that back in the day and really enjoyed it. That was another one that was included in a lot of lists for walking simulators, but it's kind of like a puzzle game. But yeah, so that's the whole story, and it's like about this king, and it's all kind of almost like a story. A storybook style, and eventually you're kind of throwing water and paint and stuff as well. So for me, it was very exciting going to Milton's bit, because I kind of forgot, like I knew Giant Sparrow was the developer, but I kind of forgot that it was tied into like the same universe. So when I got to peer through and I started seeing like some of that artwork and stuff, I was like, oh yeah, like so that was quite a cool thing to have them linked like that.
Yeah, but the developers have come out and said that. So if maybe if some of these other theories were true, they would have come out and said those too, but they didn't. They have.
That one was very obvious. Like that one is in the game, and I guess they're kind of just conferring. And they wouldn't want to say it because, like, I bet they love all of like the fear. Imagine if you've created a piece of artwork and there's all these people discussing it and debating about it and saying that oh no, you're wrong. Or it's obviously this.
They did come out and say it because a fan asked them about it though. So there is that. They did say, oh yeah, it was a Reddit thing, I think, that they came out and said. Also, it's quite difficult to like, it kind of felt kind of timeless, the game. Like, it was quite difficult to figure out when it was meant to be. It was only when I saw the gravestone at the end that I realised it was meant to be 2017.
I was going to say, there were a lot of dates directly in it, in diary entries and
but they're
stuff
like so far apart. The dates that this game covers, it must be like 200 years, I think. Yeah. So far apart. And the other thing as well is crazy is like we're saying that the reason these people died is so outlandish. It's no way it could have happened. But also like they did bring a house over on a boat, and you do see these things that are like crazy. Yeah. I don't know. It's a good story.
Do you have any like? I know you kind of said you can take a lot of it at face value, but if you were gonna guess what was like the message of it, do you kind of have something that you could like, in a sentence, maybe kind of pin down, this is what the developers might be trying to say?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I can tell you what I took away from the plot, at least, was that Edie's kind of making it up. Something else is happening, but I don't know what it is. But she's kind of making up these stories to cover it. And then by the time she gets so old and they're like, we're going to leave, she doesn't care anymore. There's not enough people left for it to be interesting anymore. In terms of I don't know. Maybe it's just you create your own luck. You create your own. Whatever you say for yourself, if you will it into existence enough, if you lie to yourself enough, it might become true. You kind of need to make your own destiny. There you go. When I die, they'll play that at my funeral, me saying that.
Yeah. And with the uncertainty in your voice of the delivery as well. Like.
Look, to be honest with you, the way I see it is it's like 12 or 15 short stories, all different gameplay things, all like quite cool, some of them funny, some of them sad. They all ended with them dying. I feel like that's what the developers set out to do, and that's what they did. And they to be honest, if that's what they set out to do, they nailed it. Like, it is good, but I don't think they were like, we're going to make a depressing game, or they were like, we're going to make something that makes people question their existence or anything like that. It was like, we're going to make a game that hope people feel things, but it's not like, that's it. That's my whole thought.
Yeah. I mean, it's impressive they were able to make a game that, for me at least, wasn't depressing, considering what it's about and like what all the stories are, and often tragic deaths and child deaths, which is, once again, is very rarely discussed in video games. The fact that they were able to keep the tone that they did was quite impressive.
Yeah, and like the fact that it's about death and not about the lives of the people is an interesting angle to focus on. Like the moment of death is almost what they're focused on. Like you get things like, in the room there's the rocket kid, the space kid, like he loves astronauts, but no, that's kind of it. They don't really say anything more than that.
Yeah.
But that's kind of enough, isn't it? To like.
And usually the glimpses of the life that you saw that they liked was just like directly related to their death. It was like, says like, the one who likes rockets is the one that swung too high on their swing and flew off, or like the person who got run over by a train was building model trains. Like it doesn't feel like it's, this was, you're kind of seeing their secret life, but then it was cut short in an unfortunate way. It was, their life was kind of related to their death. But that, I think, once again comes down to the fact that you're not seeing a glimpse into their life, you're seeing a glimpse into the story of their life that was written by someone else. Yeah. Because
there's no way, like, the guy, what's his name? Walter, the underground guy, They said that he lived underground because of what happened to Barbara.
Yeah.
But like, if that was the reason why, then you would have thought they would be able to like coax him out, because they're still going down there and giving him food.
Yeah,
that was one that I was like, what's going on here? Like, why does he live in the basement for 53 years? Like, you'd think that if someone's delivering him food and he's got this like high-tech underground base, that he'd be able to come out.
Well, that was one of the ones that was kind of used as one of the more compelling arguments for Edie, saying that he was scared of Edie, and he's saying about like he thought he was gonna, wouldn't survive down there, and saying about the monster behind the door. Is it her? And that was kind of used as one of the things that could be pointing that he's like, maybe Edie killed Barbara and he saw it and he's hiding from Edie. Is kind of like
why didn't he leave?
The arguments.
He should leave.
He was too scared of her, and then eventually then when you leave, because there's a door to the bunker. But he breaks through a door and tries to escape out another way. So that was kind of one of the arguments. He was actually directly scared. And then there's another bit talking about Edie was saying never go down to the basement, but, they would see her bringing down packages, her like bringing down the food for him.
How could he be scared of her if he's getting food off of her every day? I know this isn't your theory, so... I mean, you can watch them. I mean, I don't necessarily prescribe to that. I think there's definitely an argument that like she enjoys these stories, and she likes she likes the fame around it, and she likes the idea of this curse. And because she's like collecting newspaper clippings, isn't she? Like about this.
Yeah. So I think there's definitely a strong argument for that. Whether she's like directly causing them, I think. I wasn't convinced that there was enough in the game to suggest that.
Yeah, I agree with you. Because we've got quite a lot of questions, but you've covered quite a lot.
It'd be good just to hear. I want to hear people's opinions, what it is that they like about it. Like if anyone talks about any of their favorite ones, is what I'd be interested to hear, if there's any like that.
Well, we did actually get quite a good question from NeedML on YouTube, who basically said, all the members of the Finch family in the game have very unique, devastating but beautiful deaths. My question to you guys is, if you could add another member to the family, what family member would it be, and how would they die? And I was thinking about a pet. It'd be quite good to have, but then I guess they're not part of the bloodline. Well, I hope they're not. So I don't know. I don't know if that would work, but there's a bit where they go to the pet cemetery, don't they? And there's like the little gerbils and stuff.
Yeah.
It would have been quite cool to play through the eyes of a pet that thinks it's a human or something. Like,
yeah, well, maybe if it was related to the Finch family, maybe the opposite. I know obviously you have Molly kind of becoming a cat, but it could be like maybe someone in the family who's the one that looked after all the pets and then kind of ends up thinking that they become one of them, and they're like living in a cage with one of them and running in like a hamster wheel or something.
Yeah. The thing is, it's difficult to think of a new member without being like, and this member knows what happened. So they tell you. Because I was like, what if it was like someone on the outside, like a journalist or something, or someone who had an outside connection? Because you don't have anyone in the house. No one in the house has an outside connection, really.
They mentioned about like there's only one place that delivered Chinese food. I wonder if one of them could be working at like that Chinese restaurant, and that's the reason they would deliver to them, is because it was they would go out of their way to deliver. And there's something about, maybe you driving on like a moped with the food on the back, and something to do with that. Could be an interesting one.
Yeah. No, yeah.
Giant Sparrow, if you want DLC, that you can have that one for free. I would.
Did you see some of the playtesters, by the way, in the credits? Did you watch all the credits?
Not really. I didn't really focus on them. No.
There is like some A-list game developer playtesters of this game. Sam Barlow was one of the playtesters who made Humanity. Is that Humanity and Her Story?
Yep.
Neil Druckmann was a playtester.
Naughty Dog.
Greg Kasavin, who is the owner of Supergiant Games, that made Bastion and
Hades.
Seth Killian, who was a producer for Street Fighter. Like, when I saw the names coming up, I was like, what is going on here? Davey Reedon, who made Stanley Parable and Beginner's Guide, was a playtester for the game. So they got some really good people testing it out. Maybe that's why it's so tightly designed. Also, I've just seen, I didn't recognise them, but Robin Robin Honeycay is someone who worked on Katamari Damacy. So really helped as well. Yeah.
I wonder if they're like the Giant Sparrow developers were like really nervous when they're like playtesting, just like really like watching like these big figures of the industry like playing through their game.
Yeah, and like also getting them to find time to be like, maybe after Unfinished Swan, it was like, oh yeah, whatever these guys do now, we trust them. Because I didn't know anything about Unfinished. Like, was Unfinished Swan really good then?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Like, I don't think it had anywhere near the impact of this game. I actually was kind of going to ask you about. So they haven't made a game since. Was this 2016? Did you say this was released? 2017. So we're going on to like 5 years between games. They have said their next game is going to be focused on interactions between humans and urban wildlife. But that's kind of, as far as I could see, really anything that they've said about it. So they're spending a lot of time making their next game. And their track record is kind of 2 for 2 at the moment. So
sounds cool.
I'm really looking forward to it.
I guess that'll be like, because there was quite a lot of animals in this game as well. It was like, there's the deer at the beginning, then there's like rabbits and stuff like that. So I don't know if it was the cat, the octopus, whatever it was, the sea monster and all that.
Yeah,
it could be quite cool. I don't know. Obviously, we don't know based on that, and we don't know anything. It could be anything. It could even be that family member I just pitched that's like a pet that thinks it's a human, and you play through it, and then, oh my god, that'd be so cool! Like the whole time you think it's a human, and then when you see the grave, it's got like a dog bone on it or something. And you're like, oh, it was about a dog the whole time.
That's why they were licking everyone's faces the whole time. I thought that was weird.
Okay. Here's a question for you from Fummy on Twitter. Do you think Edie committed suicide, the grandma?
So in the game, it just says that like she went missing.
No, they don't say, but they do say that they never saw her again. Edith never saw her again, but the night that they leave, she's mixing medicine and alcohol at the dinner table.
Oh yeah, and they say about not to. Yeah, stop having that. I don't know. I don't know. Like, I think you can take it either ways. I think you could just do that. Like, that could have been a way for the game to be letting the player know that she takes medicine. And obviously, she was like I think she was like 93 or something. So
yeah, she was super old.
That's pretty standard that she would be taking medicine. You could also read it as into like, that could be related to kind of mental illness or schizophrenia.
Yeah.
It could be you could kind of read into that. It could be a sign that, oh, she's drinking wine because maybe she knows she hasn't had her medication, so she knows she can drink wine. Like there's so many routes you can take it, and you could make a convincing argument for any of them. So I don't really.
It's kind of.
I didn't get that impression.
It's kind of masterfully woven that you can. The fact that the game still makes sense and there's a narrative through line, even though so much of it is left up to your imagination. I just thought that she died an unlucky death and was like, yeah, I'm taking my medicine and I know I'm not supposed to drink it, but I'm going to. And then, whoops.
Yeah, but I mean,
she died.
I mean, they never met. Like, I think they would have mentioned about like finding a body or something. I mean, I know obviously like they're by like the water.
Quite a lot of them are missing as well. The family members are missing.
Yeah, went missing. So yeah, like I wouldn't want to commit either way. I feel like she would want to go. Well, I wonder because she wrote the story to Edith, didn't she? Mm-hmm. And I feel like if she was choosing like her time to go, I feel she would try and do it in a spectacular, fanciful way. More so than the way it happened. If my impression of her as a character is right, I don't think she would go quietly in her house in that way. She would want to have the biggest story yet.
Yeah, although being 93, she's probably knackered. And the last 2 family members left, like, we're leaving. Maybe she was like, I can't keep this up anymore. See you later. Yeah. Were there any details? Oh, sorry, this is from Mugger Rock, the winner of the vote. Asked if there was any details baked in that you found this time that you didn't notice the first time round. For example, the deer that crosses the path when she first walks up to the house doesn't seem significant until you play Sam's story, who was the one who got knocked off by the deer. Mm-hmm. And also the deer significance at the end when you're walking through the fog The deer is one of the first things you see again, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I did quite like the finding the octopus on the bed of the girl that got killed by the sea monster. Molly. I was like, oh, that's her. I was like, that's the sea monster. And then obviously they have the masks, which is a bit on the nose, but like the sea monster was like quite a cool little touch.
And there's like pictures on her wall as well of like squid and stuff.
Yeah.
As well. The thing I had too big of a gap from when I played it. I guess I was more attentive this time, and I was looking for things because I knew I'd be discussing it on a podcast. I was like, look out for like little details, because that's what I try and do. In my first playthrough, I probably wasn't quite as much because I was just kind of playing through for like, for myself. But yeah, there wasn't any big moments where I was knowing what was going to happen. I saw a detail and I was like, that's why that's there, because I couldn't remember specifically enough.
Yeah. God, just thinking about like all the stuff, like the music box that's the key for the thing, and I was like, this is very Resident Evil.
I wonder,
maybe they had the same architect.
If you kept spinning it, do you reckon the key would have come out early? Like, could you have done that?
Probably not. No, they didn't design the game to be. They didn't design it to be ran through. I mean, there's a reason why when you finish it, they give you the option to play the stories again.
Yeah.
Well, maybe a house explore mode would have been cool, or a house that everything's just unlocked and you can run around.
Yeah, but it was meant to be designed in such a linear way. I think you just go up and down, like. Maybe like they give you the ability to have a Duke Nukem kick, and you can just kick all the doors open rather than having to go around the back routes.
We got a question from Hylian on the Discord, who said, along with the scenery, I feel like another one of the game's strong suits is the writing. Were there any standout writing moments either of you loved? And I've got my favourite bit of writing by far is the in Lewis's story, all of the towns. They're naming the towns when he's like going along in the boat, and it's like, oh, you're in St. Louis. It's like, oh, you're in Minneapolis.
Yeah,
they were all so good. I think there was like 4 or 5 of them. That was definitely my favourite. That one properly made me laugh.
Yeah, no, that was a funny one. I mean, we haven't really kind of spoke about it, but I think the writing in general is really well done. I think there was like a few lines that felt like, I don't want to say like a filler line, but a line that like sounds like it kind of has a lot of meaning, but I kind of didn't take anything from it. Like things like, there's one time you're in Molly's room, and like this is like a very indicative of the type of thing it would say a lot. It would say like, I can't describe it, but it somehow felt like Molly was still here. And I feel like it's fine, but it's like that's not really saying anything, and it's not like badly written or anything, but it just feels like almost like, oh, they wanted a thing to come up on the screen, and that kind of would fit in. And there's another one like when you arrive at the house, and it's like it was almost as if like the house had been waiting. And I realized that might fit a little bit better, just because the way that all of the everyone's stuff is still there. I did feel like some of those lines were maybe a little bit unnecessary, but as soon as it gets into any of the actual stories and the voice acting, I think is excellent as well. For the VAR, there was only kind of 1 or 2 characters that I stood out as like almost mic quality as well as performance weren't as good. I thought like the Barbara's boyfriend just sounded a little. I mean, I know it's always a bit, they're playing a bit of a caricature. But that didn't stand out as much. But yeah, overall, I really did enjoy the writing.
Yeah, same. Definitely good voice acting. Good from the lead character as well. Edith's voice actor was good. Managed to keep it sincere through the whole thing.
And that's so important. Like more than most games. Like it had like it would have stood out big if it wasn't anything other than good. And the fact that it was, like, they nailed it.
Yeah, for sure. Right. Oh, the only other thing is, I know you finished it in one sitting, right?
Yep.
I finished it in 3 sittings, and both the times I came back to it, I had to replay the last story again.
Oh, really?
Which is just surprising. A super minor thing. I don't know why that was the case, but both times the autosave, when I assumed it had done it, was actually at the beginning of that, so I was like, I'll have to go back and do it again. But they're so short, it's not.
Yeah, if that was like the cannery one, though, that might be an annoying one to do back to back. That's like a.
Luckily, it was the Milton one was the second one, so it was almost the cannery one. But
yeah, I played it in one sitting, and it was like an hour and a half. was my playthrough. So
it's short.
my recording was 1 hour 38, but I also recorded the credits, and there was a few times I stopped to take notes and stuff. So I was probably like 1 hour 33 or something was my playthrough.
Yeah. You also have the achievements turned off, don't you?
Yes.
So during the credits, you get the credit for the achievement programmer comes up, and then it pops up an achievement. It says, "Thanks, Johan." It's
I love 30 points stuff like that. I love that. That's great.
No, I played it with Bryony. We did Pass the Pad. She did most of it because I played it before. No, we had a lovely time. We've been talking about it, discussing it. Yeah, I mean, her job, not to go too much about her, but she works in the death industry, and she seemed to enjoy the game quite a lot. So there you go.
Cool.
Yeah, should we list?
Yep, let's put it on the list. Okay, so we have the list up. It is in a new format because we've just done so many games that, for the video version at least, you'll know what I'm talking about. We've arranged them differently.
Yeah, and we've also included some little awards.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you can see the winners and how many awards they won. But if you want to know what they won them for, check out the award show video we've just put out. And we've also put out an audio, so you can check it out there as well.
Yep, and there's some fun cameos in there, and some silly categories, as well as some fun ones, as well as ones that was like an audience vote for just what the top game should be. And actually, that brings me on to what I want to talk about before we go into this. So, Hollow Knight, I see, has won 3 awards.
Three awards.
Yeah. It is my personal pick for what I want to be number 1. It is the bonus points audience's pick for what should be number 1 on the list. It's currently at number 5. Should that alone be enough weight for it to move up 1 spot?
Only if Death Stranding can move up.
Okay, this is a bit more interesting now, man. So what you want to keep Death Stranding above it? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think so. A game we both love. Like, I liked Hollow Knight, but I love Death Stranding.
Yeah, but it would be my number 1 on the list, and it's the audience's.
But you love Death Stranding too. You love Death Stranding as well.
Yes, that's true. Okay, so what are you? Are you wanting to leapfrog both Last of Us games with Death Stranding and Hollow Knight?
I would be fine with that. Yeah.
I mean, I would want Hollow Knight to go above them, and yeah, I'm not a million miles between Death Stranding and Last of Us. Like, I would have Last of Us above it. Let's do it. Let's have Disco Elysium.
Oh my god!
Death Stranding, then Hollow Knight. I think that is an overall. I think everyone wins there.
Yep.
Apart from Alice and Sam, who are watching this, shaking their fists, who are the guests who chose the Last of Us games.
Well, I mean, if you're putting that much weight on an award, Resident Evil down here won an award, didn't it? That it was too low.
Yes.
So can you sit there and say, "Oh, the award, they voted for it, so it needs to go up," and not move up Resident Evil?
Oh, well, you always keep bringing it back to
it
Resident
won an
Evil.
award for too low. It won the award literally being like, it won the award for it's not high enough on the list.
I'll give you 1. I'll give you 1.
1. Okay.
Actually, tell you what, no, I'll give you 2. You can have Skyrim as well. Because,
yes, let's go.
Because I'm not a huge Skyrim fan. I know it's going to upset people because Skyrim ended up really. I think it was like top 5 for best game overall.
Yeah,
from the community.
Yeah.
So we are fickle people. We don't really care unless it aligns with our own goals. I'm sorry, everyone.
There we go. Resident Evil got up to 2 spots. I love that.
Okay. Oh, but this is such a great. We won't even put this game on the list, and we're already happy about the way the list is changing.
I mean, Death Stranding in second is just great. I mean, what a great game that is. I'm very happy about that.
Yeah, I might poke at it at Hollow Knight every now and then with the nail. I'll give it a few little prods to see how stable it is every now and then. Maybe after Silk Song comes out, maybe I could give it another little wiggle there.
Okay.
See if I can push him down the cliff. Oh wait, one more thing. I just want to mention.
Yeah.
Last week or last podcast we did Humanity. I just want to say that since that podcast, I've continued to play it loads, mainly making levels and playing user levels.
Yeah.
And I've probably played it like more than like since the podcast than before, and my enjoyment of it has only gone up and up. Like, I'm not gonna try and do a push for it to move up on the list just because it would have to leapfrog Prey, and I'm not willing to. And Prey is one of my favorite games of all time. It's not quite at that level, but I just want to say that like the graph has only gone up since then, and it's the game that I've played most since doing the podcast on it on anything else. So just another recommendation. If you haven't played Humanity, it's amazing, and we're doing a bunch of extra videos around it because of how much we've been continuing to enjoy it. So if you like it as well, stay tuned for those.
Yep, with special guests as well.
With very special guests.
With special guests. But yeah, so my game that I've played the most after would probably be Death Stranding or Mr. Driller. But Mr. Driller is a bit of a cheat one because obviously it's a puzzle game, so it's a bit of a I've got 2 minutes. Yeah. I mean, Humanity's kind of the same. Like, it's not like, oh, I replayed the story or whatever. Yeah, I guess so.
And like making a level, like some levels I might spend 3 or 4 hours making a level in, so it kind of adds up that way. But I'm continuing to play it, like, just for fun.
Great.
It's great.
Anyway, what remains of Edith Finch? What does remain of her? Her story.
The stories is what remains. So at least we've got that answered, if nothing else.
I
think I'm hotter than you, so I want you to go first. Yeah.
I was going to say, can you go first?
No. I'm going to put my foot down. Where would you put it?
Well, you were just trying to make me to look like the bad guy.
Okay. Well, okay, then I'll put it, and then you'll drag it down, and then you're going to look like the hero of the ages.
Well, no, because I don't know where you're going to put it.
Yeah, even do I. So let's go up the list. So it would be above The Dig, above Bioshock 2. I would put it above Ratchet and Clank. I'd put it above Zero Ranger, above Frog Detective. That's a pretty slow way of doing it. I'd go Phoenix Wright. I'd go above Halo Infinite. Would I go above Halo? Yeah, I would. At this point, I would.
Yeah.
When I first played Halo Infinite, I probably wouldn't. I would go above Killer 7. I feel like this is where I might be like going beyond your threshold.
Mm-hmm.
It would be Driver 7. Yeah, I think I would go. Or it'd be Forgotten City, actually.
Yeah.
I think it would, for me, it would be, because arguably another walking simulator, Forgotten City, one we didn't mention. kinda.
Same kind of structure as well, in a weird way.
Yeah, I think it would be Super Metroid for me as well, you know? Thinking back to my time playing that. And would it be Mr. Driller Drill Land? What a weird couple of games to compare.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would. I think I would put it under Ooblets, above Mr. Driller Drill Land, so it would now be 15 on the list, is where it would end up. It went higher than I expected, actually, I'll be honest.
I mean, you shocked me when you said, it's better than Bioshock 2, because I was like, that's very low down. Because I would have put it one above Ooblets, one below Subterra.
Oh, really? You're higher than me?
Yeah.
That's so funny.
I've had
from
more
the
fun
conversation, I didn't pick that up from like your
Well, I had fun like playing it with Bryony, so like, we played it together and it was nice to play. And I think it's a good game. Like, if what they've set out to do, they've completely nailed it. Like, it is a fun series of vignettes, and it looks great. It's not buggy. Like, it works perfectly.
Yeah.
And the story is good. Like, it's compelling. You know, we're talking about it, and we'll probably continue to talk about it after we're done recording. You know, it's not like one of the best games I've ever played or anything, but also it's interesting. It could only work as a game. I think that they nailed it. It's just what they're trying to nail isn't necessarily what I would normally play, but I can see how good it is, and I enjoyed it. So
and that's a good point. We never really mentioned about it, like not being buggy, because I was worried at the beginning. Like, I think it doesn't do a great first impression. I think the first environment, walking towards the house, for me, the frame rate wasn't amazing, and then also I didn't think the trees looked very great. Like, I think that larger area visually didn't look great, and I was a bit like, oh no, I'm always someone saying about like I don't care about game fidelity, and I'm going to go in there saying like it doesn't look good. But then after that, I think it did, and I think the smaller environments looked much nicer, and kind of the creative stuff. So that is another bonus. So that's cool. I'm glad that that we are ending on a positive, and obviously it hasn't made top 10. And I think maybe for a lot of viewers it would be top 10. I'm assuming.
Well, you hope so,
but it's very close. yeah. I hate this game. Let's see what they think. Let's make them suffer and play this game. So we haven't fully decided. So we did say different places. I said below Ooblets. You said above.
Yeah. So for me, I had the added experience of playing Edith Finch essentially in co-op. So that was always a nice thing. Whereas Ooblets, I did it completely on my own. And for me as well, Ooblets, when I was playing it, it wasn't finished. And What Remains of Edith Finch is incredibly complete. So that's another reason why I put it apart.
That's true. I mean, that's kind of one of the unfortunate realities of when we chose to play it. It was when he says it wasn't finished, he means it was in early access. It wasn't like it was released but buggy. And it is released now, and as Ooblets is on the list, is as it was in early access. Like that isn't, it may move now, with updates. I'll let you have this one. Seeing as you gave me Hollow Knight, it could move in the future. We'll see. Let us know in the comments if you think Edith Finch should be higher. Like, let us know why. Like, this is more than a lot of the games. Like, I really want to know, in particular, what is it about this game that people really love so much. And I'm not saying as in, like, oh, I don't see, like, what you like. I mean, like, I'm just interested, like, to see, like, what aspect of this game is it that made it resonate with so many people. So if you are one of those people and you don't normally comment, please do a comment, because I'd love to kind of hear what it is about this game that you enjoy so much. Yeah,
I've got a feeling it's going to be the discussions around the game. I've got a feeling that's going to be
very possibly. That is my theory.
And also
as well.
The fact that you can watch it is almost as good as playing it.
Yes, that's
like watching someone else play it.
Yeah, and it's a short length where you could be like, I'm going to stream through this game this evening, and then that could be, that's the whole stream.
Yeah. Right, I'm not going to sort out 20 below because we'll do it after the video. But yeah, so now whereabouts is it? 14. So now we have Mr. Driller Drill Land in 16, Ooblets in 15, What Remains of Edith Finch in 14, Subterra in 13, Yoshi's Island is 12th, and then Undertale is 11th. So there we go. Just outside the top 10. Oh, and our new top 10, I guess I'll quickly do the top 5 because they've all moved around for audio people. Yeah. 5 is The Last of Us, 4 is The Last of Us Part 2, 3 is Hollow Knight, 2 is Death Stranding, and 1 is Disco Elysium.
Still, for now, strong at the top. And congratulations to Edith Finch. We have finally ended the line of bad luck for the Edith Finch family, and you have performed well on the list on the Bonus Points podcast.
That's what they wanted.
Yeah, made it all worthwhile. A worthy sacrifice. Yeah. But right, let's move on to games we are going to be playing in the not too distant future.
Yes, so next time we are doing Tears of the Kingdom on June 30th with a guest. Pretty exciting stuff. Maybe Disco Elysium should be shaking in his boots a little bit up there. I don't know. Don't want to say too much. This might be
its strongest competition yet. We'll see.
I'd say so. Yeah. And then July 14th, we have League of Legends. And then after that, just first time being announced, we're doing Earthbound on July 28th, which is on the Switch online SNES emulator thing. So you can play it there. Play along with us. Yes, that's what's coming up. We haven't decided further than that. Maybe we'll do a post when we have, but we haven't yet.
Yeah. And we've also kind of said that we're going to be a little bit more flexible with our format, because we've been a little bit restrictive as we're like 2 episodes without a guest, 1 with a guest, and then sometimes that makes it difficult for people's schedules when we're trying to book guests, and then sometimes if we're only 2 guests ahead, that means like when we're trying to book someone as a guest, we're saying like, oh yeah, in 5 months' time, can you are you free on a Monday? And so they're more often than it has been so far, games might switch around last minute. But if we announce we're going to play a game, unless there is a big reason we can't, we will do it eventually, but dates might shift. So if you are kind of playing along with us, and I know that quite a lot of people are, especially on the Bonus Points Discord, which is a great place to kind of continue the discussion. We see a lot of people there in particular have been kind of playing along with us and playing games for the first time that they might not have played otherwise because of the podcast, which is great because it's really fun to put people out of their comfort zone. That's like what we like about the podcast. So if we do announce we're going to play it, unless there is kind of mad circumstances like there has been a couple times in the past where we have skipped over a game, we will get to it eventually, but dates may slightly shift.
Yeah. Also, I started playing Earthbound last night, and it is surprisingly funny. So get ready to laugh.
Yeah, and if you don't know what it is, it's probably the one single biggest influence on Undertale. So hopefully that might be enough to get you interested if you haven't heard of it or seen anything about it before.
Yep. And in terms of what else we've got going on, Patreon now has a free trial. So you can sign up for free. You can join the Discord for free, for the length of your free trial. And you can listen to Extra Credit, which is our Patreon exclusive show, for free for that week.
Yeah.
And then what you do is up to you. But for that week, it'll be free. So yeah, you can check it out there. Blood Brothers is ticking along as well. We're waiting for 135 patrons, but we've had a big step forward in production for that. So that's pretty cool.
We've basically fully built our set.
Yeah.
And tell you what, here's a little sneak peek. That's all you're gonna get. You're gonna have to pause if you want to see any more than that. You're gonna have to pause the video quickly. I might even blur it and obscure it slightly just to make it a little bit more tense. So the set's all built, and we've actually got our date planned for when we're gonna start recording it. And our plan is to record a few and have it ready. So as soon as we reach that threshold, we will release it straight away. And then we've also been recording a behind the scenes of us kind of setting up all of the Let's Play, which will be a Patreon exclusive. So if you want to, even before the actual series go up, just kind of see what went kind of into getting everything ready for it, then that's going to be the way you can do that. Yeah.
I think that is everything.
Okay, brilliant then. So I guess we'll see all of you in a couple of weeks when we're going to be doing Tears of the Kingdom. Obviously, one that you won't want to miss for obvious reasons. It's going to be a biggie. But apart from that, thank you all so much for watching or listening to this one. Thank you to everyone who joined in the vote that brought Edith Finch to the podcast. And we'll see you all in the next one. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.